We're live.
We are. I don't know. We'll see if this thing holds out. I might just have to. Just. I don't know what I'm gonna have to do.
You're still on your headset. You're still annoyed with your headset.
Well, it's just like it'll just. Bop bop. Low battery. So we'll see. We'll see if it holds out for a podcast. I might get to the point where I'm just like, I don't know what you're saying because I can't hear you. So I went and changed on our notes. All of our season 3, which started this year, all said 2021. So I went and changed them all to 2022. Which I'm curious if all of our season 3 uploads, like to YouTube and stuff, if all the titles are wrong and say 2021.
They don't have the date on the uploads.
Okay.
They just have the episode number.
Because like up here it says 308 like in StreamYard, you know?
Right.
Okay.
Oh, well, that's because this one you typed in.
Yeah, but usually that's what they look like. You can say it, it's okay. You don't? I usually just copy. You just do season 3, episode like 8, and then put our title in for our StreamYard.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Alright, I'll start doing that.
Correctamundo.
I usually put the date in there too.
Man, everything over here is running so slow.
Everything over here has also been running slow. Yesterday was the first time ever that I had some internet issues in a year from being here. I get it, headset, you're low battery, chill out. Youth minister loses it on his own podcast when headset won't work correctly. Such a busy week this week. Friday my in-laws get here, and Saturday I leave to go to Colorado to not ski on a ski trip and sit in a lodge. And matter of fact, I was gonna see like if you were free at all next week. I know it's our spring break, but I'll definitely have some free time to do some podcast pushing if you wanted to pre-write some episodes or seasons or whatever.
Next week.
I'm there from Saturday to Wednesday. So I'm just saying like all I'm saying is like I will have a bunch of free time. And I think they said I should have internet, so.
Lauren needs to make us a St. Patrick's Day logo for the.
So next
week,
yeah, I'll ask her to. So yeah, next week, hopefully my internet will be strong enough to do our podcast from Monarch Mountain, from a lodge.
I'm gonna need you to be outside In the snow.
in the snow.
Yeah.
Snow in my beard.
Yeah, we could do that.
We'll see how well it works. I won't bring
You can
this
always
headset.
I can always just send you a link to StreamYard and you can hop in on your phone, right?
Yeah, but I'll have my laptop.
Yeah.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is Behind the Beards. Here we try to pull the curtain back, take a look behind the scenes, and reveal the things that go on in the hearts and minds of your church and ministry leaders. I'm Joshua Fowler, preaching minister in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And Aaron Partlow is a youth minister in Longview, Texas. Is the view long in Longview?
It is long, and it's great. So, we actually, so on the 14th will be our official physical 1 year. Like we got here on March 14th was our first Sunday.
Wow.
I remember that because that was Lauren's birthday. So for our first Sunday, for her birthday, we taught our first class and went to church for the first time and went to lunch with the whole ministry staff, and everything like that. And it was a lot of fun. It was really good, and it's been really good ever since. And I can't believe it's been a year.
Yeah, it's unreal, man. Unreal. Well, we spent the last week on pins and needles waiting for this little jewel.
Look at her.
Had a grandbaby. Also, does not seem right. I see this picture of my son holding this little baby.
Right.
I'm like, man, that just doesn't seem possible. But
that little baby stash.
It's so cool, man. It's been, surreal thinking about just the way time moves forward, and
all you're thinking about is how can I get there now?
That's right. So it looks like we're going to have to apply for a travel exception with the embassy to travel over and see him, because they're allowing some foreign travel, but they're only allowing it for business and education. No recreational or no tourist.
Sounds like Behind the Beards needs to do an episode over there. So this is for business.
That's right. We are working remotely, so this is a business. Yeah. No. So maybe in May, I think towards the end of May, right after graduation, I think we're gonna try to get over and see them and meet our daughter-in-law and her granddaughter. So
that'll be good.
It's really cool, man.
So fun. That is super cool.
I look at that picture and I still go, it just doesn't seem real. And Daisy sends us videos and pictures all the time, and it's just so cool. Something different about. Everybody always said, "Hey, having kids is one thing, but grandkids is a totally different thing." So I'm finding that to be kind of especially true. But
unreal.
So cool.
That's cool.
Everybody's healthy. Everybody's happy. 9 pounds 4 ounces. Big old girl to start her life on. So fun stuff. How's your week?
My week's been good. It's been really busy. Like I just, it's like every time I blink, I just have more and more and more and more stuff to like just get done and do. I used to think like youth ministry was just getting to play with the kids, but like the other day, bless his heart, like I love our shepherds at Pine Tree, and one of them came up to me and said, "You've been here since 9 a.m." It was a Wednesday. You got here at 9 a.m. and you haven't gone home? And I said, "No." And he says, "When are your days off?" I said, "Fridays, Saturdays." "And how often do you get to use them?" I said, "Listen, I am taking care of myself, and I am doing good, but like I still got to get some stuff done, and there's just a lot of stuff to prep and get done." Like I think people sometimes they don't realize like how much, if your youth, like how much a youth minister really should and prep for summer. I'm the kind of guy who I really do like to prep and get stuff done for summer, so that when summer comes along, like I don't have to do I don't have anything.
Right.
I just pull up what I have. It's already planned for. It's already done. That kind of stuff. So, like, I just try to get all that done and get it taken care of. And so, we're hosting another youth rally at Pine Tree, and so I want to get all those things taken care of and make sure everything's lined up. So, it'll be good.
It's always challenging, in the leading up, because it makes life really, really difficult and busy.
Right.
In a couple months leading up to the summertime. But then when the summertime gets there, to be able just to enjoy, to enjoy camp without thinking about what I have to prep for next week for the next camp that's coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
There's enough stress in camp and retreats and things without adding the stress of continued planning. So
allows you to take a deep breath and be present as well.
Right.
Like, I can go on mission trip and not worry about coming back and teaching class or something like that, because I can be at mission trip, and things like that. So that's just always nice to do that kind of stuff. But like I said, just being busy. I got to preach on Sunday, and so that was a blessing. I always enjoy getting to preach. I got asked a question that I haven't been asked in a long time. They said, "Well, what are you going to do?" They said, "What are you going to do? What if a church called you up and offered you a preaching job? What would you take it?" And I had to think about it, and I was like, I don't think so. I said, I just really don't have a desire. I know people have told me that, like, I have the skill set that I could preach, but I don't really have the desire to preach full time. I said, there's a big difference between writing one sermon and then writing a sermon every week for a year after year after year after year after year. So that's just not something that I am interested in. So don't call me for a preaching job. Any church.
Any church.
Any church. I don't care who you are. Leave me alone.
No, it is very different, and it is nice to be in a place where you can just, like, I still enjoy preaching, so I get to preach once in a while, and it's always good to be. I will tell you this: as a preacher, it is so comforting to have someone there who is, number one, willing, but also able to effectively step in and just continue on. Because that's the hardest part for me when I have to go anywhere, is who's going to preach for me.
Sure. Yeah.
It's getting someone to come in and teach class is one thing, whether it's adults or kids, they'll do that once. But finding a song leader and finding somebody to preach are the most challenging, roles to fill. Mm-hmm. But so it's just really, really good. And I'm sure Jody feels good having somebody that is willing and able to step in. You get to scratch that itch every once in a while and realize, hey, now I get to be a youth minister and do what I don't really love.
So bad. Yeah, prepping for Wednesday night and then jumping in and, like, trying to prep for Sunday class, but then also preaching on Sunday. So we do 2 services. So, like, it was just crazy to, like, preach a sermon and then, like, jet out the door and head to Bible class, because I'm teaching junior high Bible class, and then jet back out and head over to preach the second sermon.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes for a busy week.
It does.
Well, we're going to look at criticism today. How do we handle criticism? This doesn't come from anything specific for me. It really kind of just comes from just a general awareness of my own self of late. How do you respond to criticism? Immediately. Like, my immediate response is I am immediately defensive. And it doesn't really matter how small or how little your criticism is.
That's right. And I'm saying that's right for me, not that's right for Josh.
Well, you know good and well it's right.
You
for me
are
too,
defensive, Josh. Let me just critique you right now.
Like, even, so my wife is part-time in the office here, and I will, before we print out the bulletin, because we still print out paper bulletins, and it's also the same thing we send out an email and electronically, post it on the website. So she's a good editor, and I will always print off one copy of the bulletin and I'll give it to her so she can just peruse it and make sure it looks good. and I hand it to her and I say, "Hey, look this over and make sure it looks good." And I give it to her because I know she's good at finding typos, and I know she's good at correcting those kinds of errors.
Right.
But when she finds one, you know what happens to me? I get defensive, even though I've just asked her to do the very thing.
Right.
Just immediately I go to that place, and it's like in the moment I'm realizing, why in the world am I being defensive? But I can't stop. You have any kind of a similar or different reaction?
Worse reaction. So, everyone who knows me knows that I'm not a good speller. So in those scenarios, like I never, I don't know, when I'd have people like check my papers or whatever, I would almost have to leave the room and I'd be like, just ink it up. It's fine. And then I'll leave the room and I'll come back and I'll fix it after you're done. And there's something about like somebody saying, you know, hey, what do you mean by this? What are you trying to say here? And I don't know, like it always made my skin crawl. And I wonder if that has to do with like, you know, criticism in some way. But I'm in the same way. Like I have to prep myself, and sometimes you can't prep yourself for criticism. But I have to. My immediate response is to be very defensive. And it's not a trait that I'm proud of. You know, it reminds me a lot of the times of like I was in elementary school and I was super genius, and so I had this enlightened moment. Not really, but I was like I would line up to play tetherball, and I would love to play tetherball, and I would win at tetherball, and I would gloat that I won at tetherball, and I would be very prideful. And one day at the end of recess, I just was like, man, I don't like who I am when I win at tetherball. So I stopped playing tetherball and I started trying to do other things. You know, I tried to find humility on the playground. And that's the same kind of mindset when I think about criticism for me is like, man, I can get really defensive and I have to really pause and stop myself and think about, find the nugget of truth, you know, because whether or not if I don't fully agree with somebody, I'm going to look for that nugget of truth. But my immediate response is to be super defensive. And I don't really know if that's unnatural. Like it might be everyone's natural first response is to be really defensive, is to put our arms up and to say, no, there's nothing wrong with us. You know, and there might be like a theological study or reason or something, you can go there.
Yeah. Well, I have noticed that the intensity of my defensiveness is almost directly related to how right I think you might be in criticizing me. Like, if I am confident that what I have taught or preached or done or given is 100% correct, then I answer that defensiveness with the level of conversation. Hey, man, well, let's talk about it. But if I think you might be hitting on something that I might have already been a little insecure about, my level of defensiveness rises because now then I feel like you're attacking me in a place that and it does kind of feel like an attack, right? And so
it also depends on who it comes from too.
I think so.
Like if Josh critiques me, I'm going to be defensive, but like he can push through it. And I'm going to be like, I hate that you're right. But you're right, you know, or if my dad does it too, or my wife even. I mean, like those are people who have the ability to critique me.
Right. And this is true with some of the smallest things, but it's also true with the big things as well, right? I mean, we use some of the smaller things as examples because we immediately can relate to them and we can kind of laugh about it. But it is an example in a smaller circumstance that also plays out in some really deep and powerful moments as well. So it's not just about spelling errors. Sometimes it's about teaching. Sometimes it's about preaching. Sometimes it's about advice. As your kids get older, and as your kids get older, it will be in your home about, hey, babe, I don't really think you handled that very well with Sam. I don't think you should have. Do you really think that was the right way to talk to him in that moment? I don't really think he heard what you were trying to say. You know, and so having those kinds of conversations then becomes so important. And if I can't even establish some kind of a medium in the small things, it's going to be more difficult with things that really matter. For me, I respond that way. And this is kind of what I've kind of come to an understanding about myself on. My response and the nature of my response comes from an understanding that this does feel personal, because I don't do anything with half effort. That's just not my personality. If I have done something and presented it to you, I have put all of myself in it. Mm-hmm. So even if you're just criticizing some of the smallest things, it feels so personal because of how much of myself I have invested in that class, that sermon, that piece of paper that I gave you. We had this conversation about, just about, preparing camp and things like that. That I pour myself into this, and so it's hard for me to separate the criticism of the product from the criticism of myself personally. So that generates in me this response that may or may not be very helpful. I don't know if you found anything different about yourself that lends to that, but
I think a lot of times, it really depends. It really depends. It depends on the situation. It depends on how ready and prepared I am, right? Like if it's a bad day and I've already not like prepared, and I'm not gonna pause and I'm not gonna stop and I'm not gonna realize or any of those moments, then like I'm just gonna take it, and then I'm gonna be like super mull over it and everything like that. I'm also, I think it just kind of depends. Like there's a lot of factors into my immediate response to criticism. It also depends on what kind of attitude it's coming from. Like, is it a critical attitude? Have you brought something to the table? Are you just critiquing, or are you bringing, positive ideas as well? Is it constructive criticism, or is it just criticism, or is it just complaining? So sometimes it's just complaining.
Does it come from a source that only always ever brings criticism and never ever brings anything encouraging?
Right.
Yeah.
Or any ways or ideas how to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to say, well, let me help you out. Maybe I can help you out and do this, or something like that. So yeah, that's always kind of interesting when you think about it that way. When you have criticism, and it's maybe about like a class or a lesson, I think I'm a little bit more open to understanding. Like I guess when I was younger and a teen would criticize my class, I'd get really defensive and I'd be like, well, you're just a dumb team. But now, if a teen criticizes my class, I say, okay, well, hey, help me out. What can I do to be better? Because at the end of the day, like I guess I've come to a realization that I can try to teach any way that you need me to, so as that you will pay attention. I used to not be fond of like playing a game before class, but hey, if I play a game before class and you promise that the last 20 minutes you're gonna give me like as like super hard focused, it's fine with me. Man, I can work wonders in 20 minutes. That's fine. So we can do that, kind of an idea. And so,
especially if it's 20 minutes that are guaranteed to be devoted.
Yeah. Not having to fight you for your attention and all that kind of stuff. You're going to actually participate and think about, questions or comments or anything like that, and really participate. Mm-hmm. Then that'd be good.
And, I think you said something earlier that the source is so important. Like,
source is so important.
It's still personal, but who this criticism or this critique is coming from. Mm-hmm. If it's sometimes when it's someone that I trust, it hurts a little more, but because it's coming from someone that I trust and that I love, I'm more able to accept it.
Yeah.
Like those people that are maybe
the relationship
fringe or
is there.
Right. Or whether it's just someone, someone passing through decides to write in, or someone who encounters us, online decides to, write in or email or call in and say, I don't know about this or this or this. Well, I take that differently. I still take it personally, because I still have this ideal in my mind that I can make everybody happy all the time. Nobody else in the world has been able to do that. but I think I can.
Right. Yeah.
And even though I know that that's just simply most likely not possible, there's this ideal in me that I think, should exist. And, so it still is, kind of hurtful. I like, I like what you said about, and I agree, early on when people would come and say, I don't really think I think you missed something there. And I was like, what do you mean? I studied for a couple of weeks for this class and you just had to listen to it. And you think I missed something.
Right, yeah.
But I think that also comes from a very unhealthy idea about what it means to be a minister and to grow along with your people. And the longer I've been in ministry, the more I've learned that even from my youngest classes, they have some things that they can teach me about how to be a good minister, how to be a good teacher. And there's also some perspectives they have that I have either forgotten or I'm not privy to that can really shed some light on something. So
that's true.
Learning to have the humility to, yeah, sure, I've prepared this, but I'm also open to the fact that God might use you to teach me something today. And that's how we grow, and it's how we grow together. But we have to be really intentional about getting to that place.
That's an interesting idea to think about. I had something else I was going to put there, but it just floated away as I was
Hopped
saying.
on a cloud and went off into la la land.
It's like I'm out.
What is the appropriate response to criticism? And just maybe from a human perspective, just I'm going to pop you in the nose.
Jab to the nose.
Like in an ideal world, if you could live that ideal, how would you respond when someone brings you something that maybe you missed?
Oh, I know what I was going to say, and it also applies to this. Like I have, I've taught a lesson before. Like I've preached a sermon on a passage, and I focused in on one point, and I thought it was a good sermon. It was very textual. It was very biblical. It was a very good sermon, and one of the elderly gentlemen sitting in the back, who I don't think I'd ever really talked to, came up to me and said, "Hey, I just want you to know that you had a good sermon. I'm sad that you didn't cover these 3 other points." And I was like, if I would have covered those 3 other points, this wouldn't have been a 30-minute sermon. It would have been, an hour and a half, 2 hours sermon, because I would have been covering every single theological point that comes out of this. I said, I said, yes, those are really good points, but it was not the message in which I wanted you to hear. And yes, I believe that passage is talking about those things, but that was not the message that, I had prepared this morning. This wasn't a Bible class. This was a sermon. So I thought that was a really interesting and a very unique encounter. I don't think I've ever encountered that anywhere else where somebody said, well, you didn't cover this. And it was like, it was the first time that I had felt like, you read the introduction to a book, and then like if somebody reads the whole book, then they're like, well, the intro never told you this crazy ending. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's the intro.
Because it's the ending and the intro, yeah.
And you don't want the spoiler there. It's like, well, that's because this sermon was about this and not about, so I don't even remember what the sermon was about, but I just remember that conversation and going, okay, cool.
Yeah. So is that actually the answer that you had? You said, well, if I would have done that, it would have been a 60-minute sermon instead of a 30-minute.
That was the answer I had to him when he was standing there. I said that's a really good point, and I totally see, and I have that in like some notes, but that was not the theme or the direction of that sermon today. And he said, okay. And that was his response.
And that was his response. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
so I think there's a lot of right responses. I think there's a big pill, and maybe I'm just on this keychain right now. Like I'm just on this train of thought recently because I preached on the prodigal son, and I've been thinking about it and reading Jesus's teachings, the Gospels, and Jesus teaches so much about humility. Like there are just certain points that Jesus just constantly hammers home. Like there are pillars of what it means to be a Christian, and humility is like the biggest pillar.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my opinion. And so I think our responses always have to have this sense of humility in them, which means we have to be open and willing to listen to criticism, right?
I think in any question, related to the Bible or Christianity, there's two right answers. The first right answer is Jesus, and the second right answer is probably humility.
Yeah. I agree.
Because everything that we deal with when it comes to sin is some form of pride. Even selfishness is a form of pride and ego. And so, just from the very beginning, sin stems from a heavenly being who was second only to God, and that wasn't enough. They felt like they deserved more, and sin stems from that fall. So Christ comes in as this antitype to that, and so everything he does is this epitome of humility. So I think that's valid. That appropriate response for me is number one, to take myself personally out of the equation and realize that they're critiquing a work. They're not critiquing me, and except for when it is something personal. But as a general rule, they're talking about something that has been presented, and so this isn't a personal attack. This is a desire to get to a place where we can all work together,
right?
And being okay with someone else being right, allowing them to participate in that. That I don't have to have all the answers. I don't even have to be the source of all the answers, because as we've said over and over on this show, it is not about me.
Right.
And when I make it about me, I don't respond appropriately.
That's right.
So the appropriate response is just to step back and say, I am, number one, I really appreciate you listening. I really appreciate you reading. I really appreciate you being present. And I really value your thoughts. Let me go think on these for a little bit. And let me get back to you. Because when I have the humility and the presence of mind to do that, my response is generally so much better thought out. It's so much more respectful, and I'm able to give that input the thought that it's due.
Yeah, I agree.
So when I respond instinctively, I'm not going to respond respectfully.
That's right.
I'm probably not going to respond very kindly.
It's hard for me to sleep on an email.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we'll just talk about that, right? Like, it's hard for me to sleep on an email. Man, I want to
take a break here for a minute. I'll be back.
in the heat of a moment, I want to respond. But it is hard for me to respond or to sleep on an email or a text or something that I need to think about, and I need to pray about, and I need Jesus to intervene.
So when you sleep on an email,
take the keyboard. Like that's the song.
When you sleep on an email, do you like read it and then completely put it away for a while, or do you write a response and just not send it until the next day?
Yeah. I write a response and then I don't send it, and then I edit that response.
How often do you actually go back and edit the response?
Quite often.
Because if I do that, I don't want to edit it. When I go back and read it, all of those initial emotions come back to me. Like what I have to do is I have to write out a response and then completely delete that response.
And
then start it from scratch the next day. Because if I go back to it, I will get back in that frame of mind. And I will be like, yes, that is how I felt. And you know what? It's still how I feel. And, but yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough. But
it is.
How do you get there? How do we get
Jesus.
there? And
humility.
Humility.
It's actually, there's a lot of truth to that. And I think a lot of that comes from maturing. I think a lot of young ministers will struggle and wrestle with this because you'll receive a lot of criticism. You'll receive a lot of criticism. You'll receive a lot of criticism for just being a young minister.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you'll just for being young. I love it. I loved it when I was a young youth minister and people would come up. Well, you don't really know because you don't have kids yourself. But like, oh, you're right. And I haven't read like a ton of books and studied for 4 years and all this kind of stuff. And I understand that there is an immaturity within me. I get that. But I do know, like I do, like I am a professional, I guess I should say. So,
Right.
But like you'll oh, look at that spelling. Is that intentional?
Oh no, it was not intentional.
I'm gonna critique you
terrible.
right now.
Yeah.
For those listening on the podcast, we popped up a banner, and criticism was misspelled
Misspelled criticism.
horribly, and it's just ironic with what we've been talking about. I think you have to fail a whole bunch in order to get there, because at some point you have to fail enough to be able to look at yourself and be able to say, "All right, I can fail." Like I can flop. Like I've taught enough really bad Bible classes that just felt like, I was pushing a truck up a hill, that I know that there's sometimes where it just doesn't hit the mark. That it's rough and that's hard, and that criticism is right. I don't know. So that's. I think there's just some maturity and there's some experience that kind of happens that helps you kind of get there. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I think I think you're right. I mean, I think I have to take myself out of my own personal self out of the mix.
Yeah.
And I hate to keep coming back to it, but it's so important. It's not about me. It's about us, that we together are moving forward. And
Right.
The trouble is we've all been in situations where people have not had our best interest in mind.
Yeah.
Like their only objective was to bring you down and to put you down and to demonstrate their power over you and their authority. And I mean, unless it's abusive and hurtful, like the Christian way is to say, that's fine. Let's move forward together. Like, and that to me is just a challenge. I look at what he's being put on trial, and he's being ridiculed and mocked and called names. And he stands there and he looks his accuser in the eye and he just says, "It is as you say." He could defend himself, but he doesn't feel the need to defend himself because God is going to do something through him that the people around him don't even know. And that humility is the example that we are called to follow,
Right.
and to pattern our life after. And it's just, I can only do that when I have that same mind. Philippians chapter 2, each of you should have the same mind as that is in Christ Jesus. And then that Christ him is such a beautiful picture of humility. But
what we should have talked about on this episode was the flip side. How do you bring yourself to not being an overcritical person?
well, maybe that's fodder for next week.
Maybe that is fodder for the next week.
I think it is. Like, how do you generate, or how do you give criticism? Because it is
how
really
do you generate criticism, but then how do you go and listen to a bad sermon and search for the nuggets of gold? How do you go to a bad conference and you're like, man, and instead of just being like, oh, I can't learn anything from this, how do you change your mindset to start searching for those nuggets of truth or things that you can actually walk away with,
right?
Or look at the good side.
No, I think that's good, and we could probably talk about that for a while too, because those are skills that we need to develop.
Yeah, it is, and it's good for you to develop. And if you're in a a leadership role at your church, it's a good skill for you to be able to pass on to others and to teach others
absolutely.
how to do it.
Jesus in humility. I mean, you have a behind the beards moment. You get out your razor and shave and see what's up.
I would say like my behind the beards moment is, and since our behind the beards moments are usually directed towards just our average church goers, I would say like think about your relationship with whoever you're being critical of. Is this somebody that you have given positive information to in the past? Is this somebody that you just only go when you're being critical? Do they only hear your complaints? Or, are you willing also to go and be, critical, but also be like, oh, okay, well, now that you've explained it, like, I get it, and you're right, kind of a mindset. So I think it's always a two-way street. I think the most important part about criticism and giving criticism is understanding and knowing that it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street for criticism, it's a two-way street for humility, and it's a two-way street for, at the end of the day, it's like that passage where Jesus says, you go to your brother if you have a problem with them, and you try to fix it out. And the whole point is because at the end of the day, you will gain a brother. I mean, that's the point I'm trying to get at. Is Jesus says, I butchered that verse, but Jesus says you gain a brother, right? And so I think that's the most important thing to remember, that when giving criticism, like, this is your person, this is a brother, this is a sister in Christ, and you're both trying to achieve the right thing. So sometimes your criticism is not needed, but sometimes your criticism is needed. At the end of the day, it's not about them, it's not about you, it's about like this end goal. So was the end goal achieved? So I think sometimes we need to stop and we need to think about that. Think about the end goal. So,
yeah,
that's my moment. I don't know about you.
No, I think you're right, and maybe some of this moves in towards next week as well when we talk about giving it. But is what I'm about to say, is it moving us or the conversation forward,
right?
Or am I just trying to demonstrate that I'm being right?
Just being an anchor.
Like for me, this revelatory moment for me and people is, I get defensive, and you can say, "Hey, I don't take this personally." But I'm going to take it personally because of how much of myself I've invested in the work, in the lesson, in the event, and that's just not something I can just put away. But it is something I need to learn how to deal with.
Right.
So I would just encourage people to understand that if that person you're bringing criticism to, especially one of your ministers, if they respond defensively, don't take that personally either, because it likely means that there's something really close to their heart that you're touching on, and you would hope that's what you would find in the people who are leading your churches. An investment of themselves, that everything really feels very close to them, and we respond that way when something close to us is critiqued.
Correct.
So that's just the little window into my heart that I would hope people would see, and not only see, but help me live with in a healthy way.
Right.
And because it's a team effort. We're going here and we're getting here together, and we want to move forward, and we want to move forward together with everybody on board. So that's it for me today.
That's it for me today too. I'm a bit blurry.
Yeah.
It's okay. Well, I totally forgot that I do the closing to our podcast. I apologize. I am the worst podcaster that there ever is, and there's a reason why this podcast will not grow. It's me. We want to thank you guys for being here today, and we want to remind you of Galatians 6:9. This is our closing statement for the show. We want to remind you just to not grow weary in doing good, right? That's what Galatians 9 says. Don't grow weary in doing good. This world is messy. This life is messy. So allow Christ to use you to do something different, something good in His name. So we want to thank you guys for being here. I'm Aaron, and that's Josh. We will see you next week from Colorado on Behind the Beards.
That's right.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
I like the awkward pause before the closing. That was good.
Yeah. Well, that's because I forgot. I think I need to reset my modem.
I think so too.
I'm going to get defensive over that.
Well, when I reset mine and came back, it was time to start, and you were still a little blurry at times. Not the whole time. Just every once in a while.
Well, I had bad internet yesterday, and I had bad internet today, so I'm wondering if something got kicked or moved or something, and my internet is just not coming in.
Yeah.
The hottest.
Hey, man, I like it when we finish up a show and we have next week's show ready to go.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, huh?
Just need to copy and paste that over when we get done.
Copy and pasta.
Any, we didn't have any, like, enlightening. My head hurts, man. I wasn't, like, all with it on today's pre-show.
I wasn't with it today in today's show. Just in general. I just feel like blurry-minded. I just feel like I've been running a mile a minute and all sorts of stuff.
Any special Easter eggs for our post-show watchers before I end this thing?
It's weird to celebrate Easter with a rabbit that lays eggs and to celebrate Jesus' resurrection all on the same day. Doesn't make sense. Church Easter egg hunts are weird.
They are, but you know what we're doing this year? We're having an Easter egg hunt.
So are we.
But no
I didn't
bunny
say I don't
rabbit.
support them. I just said it was weird.
It is the whole concept is a little weird.
And I think
Rabbit
it's more weird when
and eggs
people
and-
when people try to put more Jesus into the Easter egg hunt. Like somebody called him something the other day, and I can't remember what it was.
Was it Jesus egg hunts?
No, it was something. They were like, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, why? Just like, can we just have an Easter egg hunt and just call it an Easter egg hunt and celebrate Jesus' birth? Like, it's fine.
Yeah, funny.
I don't know.
All right, guys,
That's
we appreciate you being here.
Post credits.
Post credits.
Although,
See you next
I
week.
will say this. I did get some really cool Sunday Cool stickers.
Yes.
So you
I
guys
like
should
that, salty and
head
lit.
over to Sunday Cool and order some stickers. I ordered some. I ordered some for our youth group. They should be coming soon, and we're gonna order some Behind the Beards ones too. I think.
Mm-hmm. I've got mine.
So, Tigers for Christ. Tigers. That's right.
You like my Oklahoma City Cielo Azul cap?
I like it how you expect for me to know what all of these hats teams are. Like you have more sports team hats for like minor league teams, random
That's right.
teams.
This is the Oklahoma City Dodgers. It's just there.
You might be an addict.
I might be.
We actually got to go to a minor league team when we lived in Tacoma. Somebody gave us tickets to a minor league baseball game, and it was really cool. I don't remember who they were.
You didn't bring me a hat back?
That was like
Months
over
ago.
10 years ago.
Oh, it wasn't just recently when you
Tacoma.
went up there. Tacoma. In Tacoma.
Yeah, where have I haven't gone
I
anywhere
thought-
recently.
I thought you just recently went up to the Northwest. No?
Literally last year was the last time I went to Oregon.
Well, it has already been a year since you've been in Longview, so.
It has not. Well, I guess it wasn't maybe it has been a year. I don't know. It's been a while. It's been a while.
Crazy. All right, guys. Appreciate you being here.
Bye, Felicia.